And live, Joel. I'm so happy to talk with you. I'm a heavy Metamask user. I see you every day, basically. You pop up, on my computer every day. Metamask think, and so for me, you are like family, basically. I see you every day. So I was curious about how did you start this Metamask adventure, first of all?
Interesting kind of backstory to it, but I built my first Chrome extension, I believe it was, I think in 2011. It was a filter for Hacker News. It was kind of cryptocurrency related. You could highlight things or unhighlight them. And then I built another one the year after that was actually a cryptocurrency, was a digital currency wallet. I was working on my own eco currency. So I had experience building wallets inside of browsers, basically. And then in the early Ethereum world, everyone was trying to build these downloadable clients, like this new browser for the decentralized internet, which was a really great goal. I still share that goal. I think it's amazing, but they were quite clunky as far as the user experience. And I was, I don't know, kind of like a UX guy. I liked, and I wanted genuinely people to be able to experience Ethereum and mass market. I built consumer apps before. So I was like, guys, I think the browser is where we need to be. I think it should be a browser extension. And I think we should get a team to work on it. And really, it was, me, Gav Wood, Vitalik, and sitting there in DevCon 0 in some side room. And then they're like, yeah, I mean, if you can put a team together, we'll fund it. And then, then the story diverges a little bit because some of the founding team, they're like, Joel, you're not doing enough development. And I'm like, I know, I have a lot of other projects. I just thought it was a really good idea. And if you give me some credit, I'll be appreciative or something like that. So then it kind of took multiple forms and ended up in part of consensus and all that. But it was a good ride, and it's a great project and product and everything else. And, sometimes Joe Lubin credits me for it. Sometimes he doesn't.
It depends by the day, if it's bull market or bear market. That's interesting. One step back. Did you study coding? Are you a self-taught coder? What's your background?
It's a bit of a mix. I started when I was 6. I think I had this magazine called 321 Contact. I don't know if you know that. There were like these little like coding exercises. You go in like Q Basic and like, do some go-to statements. And I always really liked games. Like I was into logic puzzles and playing games and designing games. So my like first real passion for developing things was actually like, hacking things in these games to make them do something different. And they got more and more complex. And then I won some scholarship when I was 13, I guess, from taking like some tests and getting some good scores on it. And then I used it to take some programming classes at the local college. And then, the rest was kind of history. It just came very naturally to me. So yeah.
Okay.
And then,
interesting.
And my dad and I had a little bit of a conflict. It's like, Joel, you should go to MIT. And I'm like, but Dad, I want to do philosophy and arts. And he's like, no, be an engineer like your father. And I kind of won, but I'm kind of doing stuff with MIT now, like many years after that. So I kind of like have done some things in the humanities semi-successfully. Now I'm back, like, in my roots, I guess you could say.
That's really interesting.
But coding is in my blood, I guess you could say, at some level.
Okay. And is there any specific language that you are passionate about, coding language that you are really passionate about?
Interesting enough, though, I just created my own programming language finally. So
really?
For making metaverses, yeah. So I was like looking at all this metaverse stuff. I was like, this is kind of like okay, but not like really that exciting. What you could do with a metaverse, like if you really wanted to like go deep into what metaverses could be. And so I was like, what if like you change something about how you approach space and time, add some extra variables and stuff like that, then you could really actually just write a programming language that generates metaverses. And it's a great, awesome, fun project, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah.
I tried to do some coding long time ago, and I was really bad. Perl, PHP, MySQL. I thought, oh my god, that's so difficult, this stuff, and that's it. So I don't understand how people can even code normally, or even inventing a coding language. This is out of my. Where do you start if you want to invent a new?
Well, it helps to know a lot of coding languages. So all the ones you mentioned, I was in ASP in the very beginning, and then when it became .NET, I did .NET stuff, and I've done Perl stuff, I've done C stuff, I've done C++, I've done all the different Ethereum languages and different coding stuff. So I don't know. I guess I love languages actually in general. I speak like 7 different human languages as well. So
Right.
it's like a passion of mine. And sometimes you find that like certain things, like the difference between expressiveness between Russian, German, English, and Mandarin is all quite different. And you find something you like about some language, and you're like, I wish I could use that more often, but it's not in English. English is not quite the same way, and then you kind of like do that. So it's similar with computer languages, basically. Like you find like the way, like I remember when I first discovered Ruby, and I was like, this is so cool, like the way they do the syntax around certain things. And I don't know, people like me, we get excited by things that maybe not everyone gets excited by, but then yeah, it can be cool. So
It's super interesting also because
yeah.
it's the framework for everything that we use, so it's very important.
Mhm.
And Metamask, in what language is coded Metamask?
Original version, so I haven't been involved with MetaMask for a long time, just to be clear. So even though I maybe like technically started the project, but it was all JavaScript basically. So in the browser, you don't have a lot of options, as far as what you can use, and pretty much all the browser extensions are coded in JavaScript. So
Right, got it.
it's kind of this nice thing, but it leads in because there is this opportunity to totally rethink how browsers are done, because we kind of inherited really this kind of structure of the internet and basically how people came up with domain name systems and all that, and then the browser is like our way into that. But the kind of infrastructure that's around Web3 is very different, but people still haven't really like totally rebuilt and rethought the browser. So I don't
Right,
know.
got it. And when you started Metamask, was anything else really out there as a wallet that was possible to use? I mean, what I imagine was the hardware wallet.
Yeah,
And
well, the interesting thing, so Vitalik's name for MetaMask in the very early days was called Vapor. And he thought this was really funny because it's Vitalik's sense of humor, which I partially share, because we had another thing that was being sponsored by the Ethereum Foundation at the time called Mist. And basically, it was like that downloadable kind of Go client. It's kind of this idea, Ether, like things are there. They're kind of like of this whole nother world, basically, that you have to approach. But people were building these sort of downloadable clients that basically were supposed to be all the different things you needed for this kind of Web3, Ethereum experience. And it's actually quite rare that people build them today, but I think it's still quite needed actually to go back to that era.
And how do you explain that MetaMask surged to this level of success? I mean, I don't know how many millions of users, but it's like the de facto standard. I don't know, if I buy on OpenSea my NFTs or I sell my NFTs on, I mean, it's only MetaMask basically. So what's the reason behind? What do you think?
Well, I think first of all, Consensus did a great job, with kind of being there. Kind of, sometimes people maybe refer to me like the seed, and then they're more like the womb, But they have really done a great job of like providing a lot of core infrastructure and place for people to work on this stuff kind of full time over an extended period of time, because the crypto market has like up and down cycles. So it's very critical to like kind of keep on building the infrastructure, and think about it that way. And there's just really important kind of core tooling. But then similar to what I said in the beginning, the browser is the way that people look in, and not everyone in the crypto community, from day one, because I've known many people from different projects, has been that concerned about the UI and UX and kind of onboarding people, and the language and even the marketing kind of needed to do that. So I think that's a critical component, and I think justifiably MetaMask is kind of at the top, when it comes to expressing that.
Got it. I was wondering about security and how to deal with security. Because with my paranoid mind, I couldn't sleep the night during the night thinking about people trying to hack into my MetaMask, infrastructure. But maybe it's because I'm ignorant and I don't understand how it's built, something like that. how do you deal with security when you started the project? What was the thinking behind?
I think it's a big problem, and it's in general. I think that those of us who are early days, are always about cold storage, hardware wallets, all those kind of things, and I think it's still a critical thing that again is in some ways underdeveloped. But there's really no way. Like it's a big problem on your PC, to keep it super secure, locked down, all of those things. Extremely difficult. And it's extremely difficult because of the way that these, software systems and hardware systems were designed. Like they weren't necessarily designed for like security first. And now that you're dealing with like high, financial value assets, it turns out that there's a whole bunch of holes. Like if someone manages to get to your computer and stick like a USB in it, boom, all your security is gone. So
Right.
it's a really big issue. And the same thing if you accidentally download the wrong thing or you click the wrong link or all these things, and so if you're like super savvy and aware all the time, maybe it's reasonably easy to avoid these things. But for ordinary people who haven't been exposed to that, it's actually quite tricky, especially given
Right.
the sophistication of some of the hackers. So um I don't know. I've been thinking about this quite a lot, like how to kind of redo things to have really a consumer friendly but also very secure environment. And I think like there's this thing where basically the stuff that is consumer friendly is not secure, stuff that
Yeah.
is secure is not consumer friendly. And is there some way to get the best of both worlds? I know some of the people, for leisure. I know that, founders of Trezor, like they're great people, I think, in general, and they've spent a lot of effort. And so I totally applaud that. I hope that there is some solution out there, but I don't think there is a solution that's like in the market today that
I
really
see.
checks all the boxes. Yeah.
Because Joel, I would be petrified, for instance, on a if I was the Metamask developer or I mean the founder, I would be petrified by the idea that maybe we have a bug and could be a hack and they steal all the money from all the wallets in the world, and then they say that's your fault, was fault or or that was a wallet bug. So how do you deal with that? Is something that you can somehow anticipate or
Yeah, I guess it's like similar to any wallet software or any kind of browser extension thing from the very beginning. Is a nice thing. It is like a effectively containerized within the environment. That was one of the reasons why I built I was aware because, like I said, this wasn't the first kind of browser extension that I had worked on that had dealt with cryptocurrency. But then the kind of default way of that is kind of asking the user to custody their own keys and kind of handle that themselves, client side, which, like I said, is fine. I mean, it's basically the best we can do right now with like the standard technology. You write down these things, do not keep it on your computer, keep it on a piece of paper, keep it offline, put it in a safe, whatever else, so that it's not super easy basically for someone to hack you. And yeah, and unless people are willing to kind of take some of these hardware wallet stuff. But I've been frustrated, frankly, that a lot of these hardware wallet stuff don't integrate. Like they require like sometimes require a lot of firmware updates all the time, and it's actually gotten a little bit frustrating as far as the user experience. So yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think
But
this is a big problem for adoption, because if I talk with friends of mine that are not really into tech, I mean, the idea that they, or I give you an example. I sold my NFT some times ago, and I mean, the level of complexity for a normal human being to download a wallet, install a wallet, buy Ether, convert fiat from fiat to Ether. I mean, it's like no chance. It's no way that you get a mass adoption like that. So probably everything has to be, also the UI has to be probably more friendly. I don't know, but I wonder what do you think will be the next step for wallets? Because I read an article from Vitalik. It was talking about social wallet or something like that. What do you think is a good way to improve this experience, create a mass adoption, if it's possible? I don't know.
I think, yeah, you have to go back to the real core infrastructure layer that a lot of people shy away from, I guess, maybe because they're not programmers or they don't really know how it all works. But and it takes longer sometimes to do it like the right way, so to speak. But I think it just has to be done at this point. Like you really have to go back into the browser, the kernel, the operating system, the kind of network infrastructure layer, and kind of build things like with the kind of optimizing for these things, and be prepared to sink a few years into kind of building something that has good. So there was
Right.
and I applaud the people. Like I said, I started the project, but they did spend the time, the multiple years of really working on the details to kind of get it to its current state. So
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
don't want to take any of the attention away from those engineering effort, because I know I've
Absolutely.
been through many projects. It's quite a lot of effort
Yeah,
to
yeah.
work on.
Also because it's not only launching a project, but the
Yeah.
developing, maintenance,
Mm.
debugging, and all the
Of
things.
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is a huge effort. This morning, Joel, I was chatting with one guy who is into quantum computing, and
Mhm.
I was kind of scared at the end of the conversation, because basically he said, "Look, quantum computing, I don't know how far is to come, okay, but is probably 1 year, 2 years, 5 years." He gave me a 5 years horizon, and then he said, at the moment, the impact would be catastrophic, because with real good quantum computing, you could, and he started to explain, get the private key from the public key. You could calculate that and basically get the money out of wallets, no matter what. If you have a hardware wallet, if you have the 24 words printed on your skin, I don't know, whatever it is, quantum computing would be catastrophic. So I was wondering, what's your opinion about it, and what companies are doing to prevent this?
Yeah, it's an ongoing concern, and I think there's so quite a lot of quantum safe encryption. There's a lot of people who think that basically when the problem is very clear and severe, then the solutions will arise, and I think it's kind of dangerous way to think about it, from the standpoint of people building what they're claiming is digital gold or the secure layer for the future of the financial internet. It's like sometimes when you look at the details of it, it's actually not as secure as you think, which is in some ways why I'm enthusiastic about innovation, but I don't necessarily spend a lot of time like shilling Bitcoin or shilling a lot of other cryptocurrencies, because I think I would in some ways prefer people take a more measured approach to them, rather than be like, this is the future of everything, get in now
Yeah.
before it goes up a little more. But I haven't. It is a free world out there, as I'm sure you're aware. So people say every kind of thing, and you can't really prevent anyone from saying anything, due to the nature of social media and all of that. But I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely, there's a series of concerns there. Let's just say,
Oh,
and I still think it's early innings. I don't think, even though these things have done well and there's a lot of momentum, I still think there's a lot of opportunity for the sort of next generation of people to come in, and people to come in who are, let's say, I guess like more consumer focused from the beginning, because there's a sort of idea as well, and the core of some of these cryptocurrencies about like this idea of like, I'm going to get in early and stockpile and then just hold
yeah.
on to it, kind of whatever else, versus like the design principles for how can we design a new financial internet that like benefits everyone and facilitates freedom, and some of the other things we're doing, which is in some ways more of a like broad design exercise, but it still often hasn't been done and hasn't really brought in, I think, the teams that could really succeed at scale. So I don't know. As much as I love the Web3 community, I still think there's a lot of opportunities to do things in the future.
Definitely. And tell me, so what have you done after launching Metamask, working on it for how long, and when did you start to move on different projects?
So around the time of kind of the early MetaMask history, I also had launched what was the first cryptocurrency like crowdfunding DAO, effectively, basically the really first like DAO that was
Right.
made, because it was directly inspired by Ethereum, but we implemented it on kind of this colored coin protocol called Counterparty on the Bitcoin blockchain, because Ethereum hadn't launched yet. So we were kind of testing out some of the different things.
Right.
And it was actually very challenging for a variety of reasons, mainly technological reasons, but sometimes there's also like internal politics of these cryptocurrency communities. And then and that was going well in some respects, but not well in others. It was we decided to go the very conservative route of basically accommodating all of the regulation, and then we very actively engaged with regulators in many different jurisdictions,
Oh,
including
wow.
yes. And in fact, I ran the first cryptocurrency and the law related conference, or like co-founded it, like many other things, at Harvard and MIT. So we basically started at Harvard and then did a kind of MIT spinoff. And we invited the SEC to participate, and then all these legal scholars got together, and they basically wrote the utility token. It was me and a couple other people in a room saying, "Here's where we think a utility token exists. This is kind of the principles of what is like a legitimate and legal ICO versus not." And a lot of the kind of standardization happened basically all in this kind of room inside the like Harvard Berkman Center. Which was kind of exciting, but then I kind of went back to the regulators. I was like, here's what we did. You guys want to engage? And
I
also they
see.
really had no interest in talking, which was kind of disappointing because we spent
Right.
a lot of effort on it. And then, later
When was
on,
it?
huh?
When was it? How
This
long
was like
ago?
January 2015. Yeah. So
Oh, wow. So like a long time ago, for regulators, it was like Ice Age. Okay.
yeah, they decided later on they really cared about the topic and put out a lot of information, but at the time, I don't know, they didn't seem to be very interested.